For the deck, we'll need 2 octagons. One is just a template. This one over here is just a template. The 4-inch one is going to be our deck for the light, and we'll cut 1 5/8" sides to create that octagon. And this template is going to be used for our fence or railing, and the square is cut 3 9/16. That's a 1/16 of an inch greater than 3 1/2. And then when you go to mark the sides, they are just a little bit under 1 1/2 inches. So when you take your centering ruler, and normally you would mark 3/4 of an inch on both sides of center, what you want to do is make that mark just a hair under the 3/4 of an inch on each side, and that will make these sides just a little bit shorter so that our railing piece can fit around, and this will help us build the fence. So this is our template, this is our deck, and for our deck I've just cut a piece of 5 1/2" paper, and I'm just going to simply wrap the edges on that, and that will take care of the deck. Now the other piece we need to prep here is our fence base for the light, and it is 12 inches long, and I've scored it at 1 1/2 inches. So we have 8 sections at 1 1/2 inches. And I'm going to use for my fence, this is a Spellbinders die, and its name is Wrought Iron Die, and it is about 4 1/2 inches long and 1 3/8 inches high. Now you can experiment with whatever dies you might have to create this fence. This is one I had, and I thought it worked pretty well. So we'll get to that in a minute. But to finish off this, we're going to attach this fence to the inside of the fence base. That's what's going to happen here. So I want to clean finish the inside of that edge, and I'm going to do that by I'm using a white fence, so I've cut some white cardstock that is cut 1/2 inch, and I've scored it at 1/4, and I'm going to wrap starting on the inside, and I'm going to leave just a little bit extra down here so I can make the join. So I'm going to do that wrapping, and then I'll be back. So I'm not sure if I said this, we put that cardstock on the inside so that it can go just straight along the inside, and I just left a little bit on the end to make a join. And then I'm going to slip my template inside of here. That's just going to help us keep everything in shape while we're working. And now I want to wrap this edge to the outside, and I'll do that like we've done before, just cut my little notches and wrap it to the outside. And I should say that you don't have to cut notches because the outside is bigger than the inside, so you can just cut a slit in between each one and then wrap it to the outside. So I have about 13 inches of fence here, and I don't think I said before that I doubled it up. I took 2 sections that I cut out, and I just used I used this Claudine Helmuth multimedia matte to adhere it. If you had like stick it, you could use that or anything. I just think it needs a little bit of extra sturdiness, and when I cut this die out, I cut it out with a sheet of wax paper and then some cardstock, and that's about as thick as I've had success with it, and so I think it needs the doubling up. So anyway, I've got that, and I've got about 13 inches of it here, and I finished wrapping my little base here, and I've got it inside of the template, and the template's a little bit loose, so it wants to fall out, so I've added a couple pieces of blue tape that semi-successful. Anyway, I've prepped the outside edge here with some score tape, and I'm going to add this to the outside edge, and I think I'll start midway in one of these places. And on this die, I'm going to try to catch at least part of this solid piece that's going across here. So I'm just going to probably about halfway up or so catch that and just kind of work my way around here. I don't know how well this is going to end up. We'll soon see. So it came out almost exactly even and close enough that I think if you weren't looking real hard you might not see it. So I just put some white glue on the ends there to get them attached. Now I'm just going to look at each of these intersections for the octagon and just kind of give a bend in the fence. It may just need to be up at the top part here, just so it doesn't look curved. I want it to look kind of octagonal. And so then there is the fence part. Now to trim off this outside part, I think I'll use some pattern paper. I'm going to put it up on the lighthouse and decide. I'm just going to cut a 1/4 inch strip and ink the edges and put that on the side there. So I'll do that and then I'll be back. So now we're ready to put everything together, and first let's center the wall assembly on the deck, and I'm just measuring to see how much extra there is, and it's about 1 3/8 inches, I think. And so what I'm going to do is just use a couple of Post-its and figure out, so if it's 1 3/8 inches, that half of that would be 1/2 inch plus 3/16, and I'll just go ahead and put some Post-its on here. I have to do it kind of in 2 stages. Put one on, then match this one up, and then we can come and do that on this side as well. Measure in 1/2 inch plus 3/16. Then I'll put one up this way. And probably 2 will do it, so that if we come to get those 2 edges lined up. And I'm just going to use some wet glue to put this on. That way I have a teeny bit of wiggle time if I need to wiggle it around. So now before that glue sets up, I can quickly go around and see if things look good. I think that's going to be fine. So then, to put the fence on, let's just do a dry fit first, and you can see about where it goes. It's kind of like about 1/8 inch back from the sides. And the one thing I want to look at is where the seam is on my fence, and here's the seam on my light, so I'm going to put them kind of facing the same way. And here again, I'm just going to put some glue around this bottom edge. And I'll just, pardon my head if it comes in here. Definitely coming in, I guess, so that I can see all around here. And I can come in on the inside and push down on that with my bone folder. A little tricky to get in there. And we'll let that whole unit set up and dry before we attach it to the main house. So our last step for the light is obviously the installation on top of the tower. A couple of things to think about, and that is which side you want facing where. And then I like to just kind of put it up in a dry fit mode just so I get an idea. I'm looking at it straight on here so that I can see about how much is going to be on either side. And then of course you'll want to, when you go to put it on, you'll want to make sure you get that same amount in this direction as well. So I'm just going to use some wet glue for this process so that I have a little time. Just put a blob up here. Look at it this way. Look at it that way. Maybe just back a hair. I think that's good, so we can put some pressure on that for a few minutes and then allow that glue to set up and dry.